welcome to the 757 Spy Flight on YouTube. Welcome to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Hello, my name is Dave. Thank you for coming over. I do the Spy Flights over on Twitch. And on Friday, we had a really big event over on VATSIM. We did a Friday Night Ops event, we call them the FNOs. And that's where there's a whole lot of pilots and a whole lot of air traffic control. And one of the things that I was reading in some of the comments in chat over on Twitch was there's new people learning how to fly, and we're a little disappointed, weren't able to, didn't feel ready to fly the FNO. So today, basically, what we're going to do is I was going to try and say, hey, here's some of the things to start thinking about and doing so that you can do some of the biggest VATSIM events around. And the VATSIM event that we did was, it was Washington National Airport it was Boston to Washington National. So this is all about preparing for the VATSIM FNOs. Now, let me be really upfront here. This is the rabbit hole zone, okay? This is a complicated thing. There is an awful lot to do and get done before the FNO even starts. So as much as I like Assassin's Creed, it's not a matter of firing up the game and start hacking and slashing and just go. There needs to be a lot of preparation, especially if you are new to this VATSIM thing. So what am I using for add-ons? Navigraph, SimBrief, SimToolkit Pro. I'm using those three, including the charts. I do have payware airports for Boston and Washington National. Outside resources, I'm using Digital Latest and FlightAware. And I also just started using GSX. So I am still learning about GSX, and we'll see if we can make some GSX stuff go along today. Here's our flight. We're doing Boston to Washington National, just like the last FNO. Just like the last FNO, we're departing off of runway 9 on the PAT 6 departure. Our flight route is going to be just a little bit different, but we are doing Clipper 2 on into runway 1. Now, because this is recorded on YouTube, the weather may be different, so your runways and your SIDS and stars might be a little bit different. But basically, this is one of those things that you could fly along with me, and maybe that's going to help you get ready to go for your first FNO too. Cruise altitudes, flight level 360. It's about an hour and 40 minutes gate to gate, 561 miles. So at the risk of putting a lot of words up on the screen, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you really need to do for an FNO. Extra fuel. Absolutely, it is a must. This is all about hurry up and wait, okay? If it's you and a couple of controllers and 200 other pilots trying to get out, you're going to have to hurry up and wait. So that is definitely one of the things that you need to be ready to do here. Forget 10 minutes out of the cockpit during an FNO like Boston to Washington National, okay? It's not the longest flight in the world. You're going to be changed to a lot of controllers. In other words, hit the can before you sit down, okay? 10 minutes out of the cockpit is, I heard people requesting 10 minutes out of the cockpit at the most ridiculous times. It's sort of like, okay, we just took off 10 minutes out of the cockpit. No, it's not going to happen. So please, scratch that off your dance card. Your flight plan is going to change. My flight plan changed 3 times during the FNO. Okay, they change plans based on the number of people flying around. So be ready for your flight plan to change. Also, be ready to do a hold. When we're flying around doing the Twitch spy flights and stuff like that, we hardly ever do a hold. So do you know how to put a hold into your flight management computer? Be ready for that. Also, I really like to suggest, especially as these airports are getting more complex, and if you're going to be using GSX and stuff like that, pre-test your departure and your arrival airports, preferably the day before. Make sure everything works. You don't want to be troubleshooting, 10 minutes before it's time for you to really be requesting a clearance, okay? Check out a real-world flight. I do like to suggest doing that because that's going to give you an idea of what departure and arrival gates to use, especially when you're getting off the runway and the tower switches you over to ground, 0.9 on the other side of the runway, and the first thing you do after you call up that you hear from ground is United 441, say parking. That's the ground controller who's already overworked wanting to know where you want to park. So by checking out a real-world flight, you get an idea of where your airline parks, and that helps out a little bit. I also like to suggest something called back timing your flight. A lot of these big events are starting to use departure slots. You know what I mean by departure slots. You have to go and reserve a departure time. And then there's one event out there where you actually have to reserve an arrival time. So you really have to understand the concept of back timing. And one of the best ways to do that is, we're all airplane geeks here, right? Okay, we've all saved our printed boarding passes, right? Come on, admit it, you've done that. So the thing to do is take a look at one of those boarding passes. This is the boarding pass for today's flight. And you can see the very big number in the middle. It says 7:55 a.m. That is when boarding begins. And if you look at your boarding pass, chances are you've got a big number. It's not the departure time, it's when boarding begins. If you're going to use something like GSX or load your airplane with passengers and stuff, just using the Phoenix or PMDG app, you need to back time that. My departure time for today's flight is supposed to be 8:25 a.m. local time. So you're going to probably need about a half an hour to get stuff ready. So start loading your airplane 30 minutes before flight time. It's that simple. So that's kind of the way. And so what you see is it says 7:55 is the big number, it's boarding. Then the 8:25, that's when boarding ends, because that gives the flight crew 10 minutes between the time that everybody's in their seats and all the weight and balance stuff is done, and then your departure is 8:35. And most, by the way, most of the big VATSIM events, the ones that require you to book a departure time, they basically are telling you that they expect you to be ready to push and start 10 minutes before your slot. So this idea of back timing is definitely something to pop into your head there. And then finally, one of the things I'll suggest is, if you have the time, and I know we all don't have time to just fly whenever we want, but if you can do a practice run before the FNO. So if you know that the next Friday Night Ops is going to be Boston to Washington, do a practice flight. And one of the things that I'm going to try and do is look at the next FNO, and I'm going to try and figure out what that is and do a practice flight here on YouTube. It's probably going to be a week or so before I can get into the groove of doing that. I'm going to try and do that practice flight. So maybe that's going to help out a little bit. There is a lot of numbers and a lot of little rabbit holes here. This is our flight. And remember, I was telling you the PAT 6 departure, Nelly, BizX, the Q75 Airway, MXC, and then Clipper. Be ready for reroutes. And one of the things to do is to look at the FNO's website, the place where you go and find that. Link in the description for all of the VATSIM events. But one of the things is you need to go and also look and see if they have what's called a preferred route. And one of the things that we had for the last FNO was a preferred route that was really kind of unusual. And let me show you what it is that I'm yapping about here. So take a look over here. This is Navigraph, and you can see right here, this is the route that I have that we're going to fly today. Well, the route that they had us flying on the FNO took us way out over the Atlantic Ocean, okay, and then brought us in basically right down here. So they took us out over the Atlantic so that they could vector us around a little bit and space us out so that we could do our landing here at Washington National. So the other thing to be sure and do is be ready for something along the lines of a preferred route. Okay, that's an awful lot of words and stuff. So what do we do here? Well, if this is your first time checking me out here on YouTube, first of all, thank you. Welcome if you're new. But now's a great time for you to think about stopping this video, firing up your flight simulator, putting your airplane on the ground at Boston, and fly along with me. That is a great way. That's quite frankly, and maybe I'm just, weird. I don't know. But that is how I learn how to do things. In flight sim, I go and I fly along, and I like flying along with some of the real world pilots and also some of the other live streamers. It's how I learn things. One of the cool things about YouTube, you can pause, restart, and rewind the video. If I did something too fast, you can rewind it and go and look at it again. And then after that, I always like to suggest go and do your hometown flight, do a flight on your own. That's just a way for you to kind of remember some of the things that you have picked up here. Okay, so without any further ado, let's go ahead and do a flight. I hope that some of that helps. One of the other things that I do like to suggest before a flight is seriously set down an hour before your departure time. Make sure everything is set up. Check your USB controllers. My USB controller last week, I had a USB controller failure. My stick, the USB just unplugged, and that shut down my engines on the CRJ right after takeoff. So like, oh my gosh, in-flight emergency, what are we going to do here? So it's always a good idea to, if you've got the time, and I realize we're not all made out of time here, but it certainly is a good thing to do. You know, have your cup of coffee ready to go. And there you go. Speaking of cup of coffee, thank you for joining me over here on YouTube. I've also recently opened up a channel on Patreon. It's where I do pre-flight videos, and I would certainly like to say thank you to the secret agents, the special agents, and the double O's for supporting me, and ask if you've got some time and you find any of this valuable, maybe consider going on over there and helping me kind of bump the channel up to a point where I can keep the bills paid and stuff like that. Enough yapping. Let's go out to the airplane. So this is the PMDG 737. Coffee time. Okay, here's the PMDG 737, and we are at Boston Logan Airport. This is gate Bravo 29. By the way, this is the flight strip. If you take a look in the description below, you will see most of the elements of the flight strip I've cut and pasted into chat, so that into the description, so you can cut and paste it into NotePad and then adapt it and use it. This is how I take notes. This is how I keep track of where everything is supposed to happen here in the flight. Okay, so we are at gate Bravo 29. How did I know about Bravo 29? This is how it is that I figure out where the gates are. So I will go to FlightAware, and let's go ahead and take a look at KBOS, Boston Logan. And then what I will do is just go and look and see. Now, United does not run direct service from Boston down to National. So the next thing that I could do is I could go and take a look at departures. Where are some United departures? Hey, here's one, United 213 at LA, going to LAX. And that airplane is at gate Bravo 27. That's how you go and find what gate to maybe think about going to. The next thing to do is KDCA. Reagan National, Washington National Airport. So we'll come down here and do the same thing. Where is there a United flight in Washington? Okay, most of these are going to be Republic. Here's one. Here is United 697, Washington, gate Bravo 11. Okay, so this is where you can go and figure out where there are departure gates. Okay, next thing you can do is figure out your airports. There's two ways to do this. If the event hasn't started yet, I like to go to FAA's Digital ATIS if it's a flight in the United States. If it's not, then just look at a METAR, and you have to do the math to figure out what the airplane, what they're using for departure and arrival runways. But for this flight, we can go here and go to KBOS. There is Boston. And this is their ATIS, and this is what is going to tell us that they're doing an ILS for 4 right for landing and departing on runway 9. And runway 33 right is also used. So runway 9 is the departure runway. So one of the secrets, okay, to being able to move your way through an FNO quickly is if you can go and figure out what the departure runway is. And another way is to go to Simaware, link in the description, of course. And then what you can do is come on in here, and what do we have? Well, Boston's asleep right now, but here is BDL Airport. So Bradley International, and there's ATC here. So you can go and put your mouse pointer over that and read the ATIS that VATSIM has for that airport. And you can see runway 6 and 33 in use. Aha, so now you can know what runway they are using for departures and arrivals. The thing to do with that is then when you go in and start flight planning and put a flight plan into SimBrief, use that runway. That runway is then very probably going to give you the exact SID or star that those controllers really wish that you were using. And I found that by doing that, I get my PDCs a little bit faster because my flight plan reflects what they're doing. Okay, so we've already gone and done my flight plan. The next thing that I've gone and done is get what I call the stack of charts. In the old days, when pilots were getting ready to do a flight, they would stack up their paper charts in the order that they needed them. Okay, well, here with Navigraph, I can go and create along the bottom what I call my stack of charts, and I assemble them in a way that I need them. So I don't use the sync. I think sync is nice, but I can't delete things when I'm done with them, and I really like to be able to do that. So over here, we can go and look and see, there's gate Bravo 29. So there's Bravo 29. There is my airport surface map chart. It shows me where the taxiways are. I also might start thinking a little bit ahead and think, okay, we're going to probably push onto taxiway Alpha, Alpha over to Kilo, Kilo over to Mike for a departure on runway 9. If I can think ahead and think what the controllers are going to be doing, I'm a little bit better prepared for the chaos. And that's a good word. It's going to be chaos, but that's how you manage the chaos. And we take a look at the PATS departure. And one of the things that ATC really wants you to do is look for something like this. Now, of course, every airport's different, but the top altitude, what is your cleared top altitude? In this case, it's 5,000 feet. Because in your clearance, all they're going to do is say, climb by the SID. They expect you to know what that 5,000 feet is. So that's another thing to take a look at. Coming in on the Clipper arrival, we have a general idea of what altitudes we're going to be trying to hit on our descent. And then the other thing is this is when we get a chance to check out our transition. Well, we know that Washington is landing to the north, so we're going to be looking for things like Felty and High Tech and CAVD when we're putting our flight plan together to make sure that the correct transition is plugged into the FMC. Trying to fix something like that in the middle of an FNO is not fun. And then we also can have a quick look here at the ILS coming in. We know that by looking over here where the platform altitude is, on the spy flight, we like to call it the final plunge altitude for the runway, but 16,000 feet. I'm also just going to go and quickly try and figure out where is a category 1, where is my decision height, 106. And then after that, I'm also going to take a look at the ground chart here. I called it surface ground chart here. Runway 1, chances are I'm going to hit November 1 coming out here. And United is parking at B11. So there's the B concourse. There's where United's going to be parking. So somewhere down here is where we're going to try and park. Now, if you do say, if you've gone and done the research and figured out, United parks at B11, and they say that gate is not available, then the next thing that I usually say is then closest available parking. And that gives them something to work with so that they can take care of me and move on to the next airplane as they're dealing with a couple hundred airplanes. The next thing that I also do is I will have a quick look at the weather. Obviously, it is a soggy day on the East Coast in the U.S. that we're doing this. This is Sim Toolkit Pro. This is what it is that I use for flight planning along with SimBrief. It's free, works great. This is also where I went and plugged in the runways that I want to use. It really is a nice tool. It's evolving constantly, and it's also free. So I definitely think that that's pretty awesome too. Now then, one of the things that I yapped about was on-time departures and stuff like that. Well, if we take a look at the actual time in the simulator and real time, which is what I'm flying, we are now 20 minutes late. Yep, we're 20 minutes late, but you know what? That's something to be expected. Just because they're running late doesn't mean that you should be running late. Okay, and that's so you need to be on time. Chances are they're going to be running late, but they're shoving the airplanes around, so there you go. Shall we go and hop in the airplane and do fun airplane things now? This is the PMDG 737. One of the first things that I will do now, my cold and dark setup is I usually have the main passenger door open for cold and dark, and then I also have a ground power unit set up. Okay, that's what I have pre-set up here. Now, one of the things that we can do is we are using GSX for the first time. They've got some nice improvements. So let's go ahead and click GSX and see if we can't get ourselves a jetway. Let us operate a jetway. And here comes jetway. So this is going to operate the jetway for us. And it's also going to put some ground stuff out here too. So we can go ahead and get the jetway here. And that means that the pilots can come in and walk down the jetway and stuff. And you can walk into your airplane, which is very cool. Yep, there we go. So doors are open, jetway's open. And by the way, I do recommend walking around Boston Airport. It's really pretty cool. The very first thing that I'm going to do, usually when it's on any type of a flight with any of the airplanes here, is I go into FS Actions on the PMDG, Ground Services, and I've requested the jetway, so that's taken care of. Next page, I'm going to go ahead and put in my fuel order. And I did order an extra 30 minutes of fuel. If it's a big VATSIM FNO, I'm going to put in an hour of extra fuel. And I'm not kidding. I needed almost 45 minutes of extra fuel for the FNO trying to get out of Boston. So for fuel today, it's 16,233 pounds. 16,233 pounds. Put that in there, and I'm just going to request that fuel truck right now. Now, I'm only going to use some parts of GSX, so we're not going to use the whole thing for today's flight. Next thing to do is look at your passengers. My passenger number today is 143. So 143 goes in there, and we're going to leave the passengers at the gate for a little bit. Next page is going to be cargo, and my total cargo is 8,600 pounds. That's going to be 4,300 pounds, or 4.3 up front. It's going to be 4.3 in the back. And I'm going to just go ahead and request and get these going right now. You could also do some of this with GSX, but this is how it is that we need to load the airplane here. And if you take a look, the PMDG stuff is going to show up. Yes, it's going to conflict with GSX. I'm still new at GSX, so I'm just going to deal with it. Okay? Now then, the other thing we could have probably done is gone into GSX and done a reset. I probably shouldn't be doing this here. So let's do a restart of GSX, and we'll just leave the jetway there and probably be able to pull it back. That's going to get their ground stuff out of the way for now. Okay, so baggage loaders are starting to show up. The captain and the first officer aboard the airplane. Let's start turning it on. So first things first, the battery. Let's get ground power plugged in. There's ground power. And we've got all of that. We're going to go over here and turn on the nav lights. Got to get those taken care of. Then I will usually, since it's a US-based flight, I'm going to go ahead and get the aft fuel pump on, and I'm going to go ahead and start the APU here. And everything else is good. We can come up here. Recirculating fans, get these on right now for ventilation. So that takes care of some ventilation there, and our airplane is slowly coming to life. I'm going to clear the caution, and we'll come on down here. And you notice my flight management computers have changed a bit. So I usually manage the PMDG. I come to the first officer side, menu, FS Actions, Ground Services, and then page 2, and have a quick look. The fuel truck is ready to go. Let's start fueling right now. Now we're going to go to this page. We'll leave the passengers at the gate a little bit longer, and we can start loading baggage and cargo. And I'm going to just sort of sit here for another second or two for the aft carts. Maybe it's going to take a while. Let's go ahead and come over here while we're waiting for that, and I'm going to hit FMC over here. Check my nav database, December 29th through January 26th. Our nav database is good. We'll go to position init. We are at KBOS, Boston Logan. We are at gate Bravo 29. So let's see if it knows Bravo 29. Some of the newer airport, they do, but this is a new airport. It does not know gate B29. So clear this, go to page 2. grab a GPS position, put it in the scratch pad, come back here, and now we're ready to, look at this, they've connected. Let's start the baggage loading. Get that done right now. Now then, we'll come on up here, and we'll look up here, and we can go and do the nav. So these two get clicked over to nav. These get clicked over to nav. If you are flying at night, turn on a dome light to low. Just do it now. It will save you some trouble. And it makes it easier to see stuff. Okay, so this is coming up there. Do we have an APU? Yes, we do. So we can also now turn on packs. That's going to be ventilation. So we got to get the vents going here because of, the bug. So they need to get things ventilated and get the ventilation going before we can welcome our passengers aboard. By now you can see the set IRS position boxes are up. There is a latitude and longitude of our current position. Let's click that, and that sets that up right there. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Now then, if you generated your flight plan through SimBrief and Sim Toolkit Pro, SimBrief mostly, there is the downloader, the SimBrief downloader. Until we get the really much anticipated electronic flight bag, which is supposed to automatically connect with SimBrief and stuff, I've found that using the downloader is great. If you look down here, you can see I have stuff already set up for the Mad Dog and all of the PMDG airplanes, which those are the airplanes that need a downloader. Click one button, all of that stuff is downloaded, slide it out of the way, close the application, and life is good. It's downloaded all of our data, and so that's looking good too. Now then, as we look down here, we see the baggage going. You can hear the ventilation system is going. I'm going to go ahead and start boarding passengers so we're not here forever. Soon as you possibly can, I try and get things loaded and ready to go because, we need to be able to depart when ATC needs us to depart. So getting all this done fast and furious is the way to do this. Okay, now we're done here. Let's do route. Let's say it already leaves Boston here, so put in Boston and request the flight plan. And it says 13 of them. So let's see, is there a DCA? Up there it is. And I don't know what it is about this, but I click it, and if you don't click it immediately, it recycles to the top again. Maybe I'm just not being patient enough. So Boston to DCA, and that's our flight plan. Let's select it. And our request, I believe, is in. Maybe I have to hit request here too. Okay, maybe I have to, route uplink ready. Now we can load it. And it is loading. While that's going on, another thing to do is check the ATIS. You can do that several ways. If you're on VATSIM and you're at a controlled airport, you should be able to go into vPilot, click ATIS. It's at the bottom of all of the ATC, and it should show you their ATIS, and that's where I leave that data. Why copy it down several different places? It works really well. And also if they say that the ATIS is updated, you can click it again and your updated is right there in there. Right in vPilot, and it makes it easy to see. Right now, I did check the ATIS, and the altimeter is 2952. So let's go ahead and do 29. Wow. Low pressure here in the East Coast, 2952. And route data uplink is now done. So we're going to clear this out. We are flying as my usual flight number. If you can have a flight number, I know the real world pilots have different flight numbers. It is so nice to just use your number because it's easier to rattle it off when you need to rattle it off. We know that we're departing off of runway 9, so we'll put in the runway. And let's activate it and execute it. Now we'll go to departure and arrival. We already know that our departure. So it's 9 is active. We'll select it. We are doing PATS departure, PATS 6, and execute that. Come back to the index. We already know that National is landing on runway 1. We know we are doing Clipper 2. Our transition in is indeed MXC. We're not going to have the transition to the runway. It's vectors. Execute that. Go into legs, and I'm going to do just a fast click through. Look for any unusual route discontinuities. There should be one between the end of the star and the beginning of the ILS. It looks good. Now we're going to go to route, and that's great. Okay, now we're going to come over and manage passengers and baggage and stuff like that. So let's go to page 1. We have ground power, chocks, jetway. How we doing here? 16,233. Look at that. We can release the fuel truck now. That's done. 58 passengers aborted, and we have already loaded the forward cargo, so we're going to get rid of that as quick as we can. There we go. That's out the gate. Next, looking up here, we need to put in our final cruising altitude. Now would be the time also, you know, we've gotten our clearance. We already know our cruising altitude is going to be flight level 360. So we're going to put 36,000 feet in there. 356. So it's over here. The landing altitude, you can only choose 0 to 50 feet. I think it's like 13 feet above sea level in Washington. You can look at the Washington ground chart and see, oh, 14 feet. I was off by 1. The memory police are coming to get me. So you just leave that at 0 for landing altitude. And more of our flight is coming together here. So we can start doing performance initialization. And we do know that our final cruising altitude is 36,000 feet. So we'll put that in here for cruise. Cruise winds. Cruise winds are something you'll get off your flight plan. I'm using the default Orlando style. Average winds here, 232 at 96. So we'll go ahead and put in 232 at 96 knots. The next thing is cost index. This is a United 737. It's a flight less than 4 hours. That's 35. The reserves, that's going to be final reserves and alternate fuel, and that's going to be 5.8. So 5,800 and change, so 5.8 is my reserves, and we're going to stop there. Hey, look at this. The aft baggage is done. Let's get rid of those baggage carts. Now we're just waiting on passengers. Okay, we look it on down here. ATC called, gave us a squawk code of 2000. We'll put in our squawk code of 2000. That's looking good too. We looking up here. I think all is right with the world. Let's go ahead and do the window heaters now. So window heat can start in there. And we're just kind of waiting for passengers here. And you can see the PMDG stuff is kind of awkwardly moving away, but all of that ground clutter is starting to move. All right, another thing that I will like to do if I have a few minutes to breathe is I like to come down here and adjust some stuff. So main panel lights, I'm going to pop this up here so that it shows, makes reading the labels on the panel a lot easier. I'm finding that the instrument lights are a little hot, especially during the daylight, so I turn these down. I'm having a hard time seeing the flight directors. So if I turn these intensities down, I'm actually able to see and follow the flight directors a lot better. So I go and turn these down. And it just makes, these things can be too bright and the characters blaze on the screen. I can't see them. And then the other thing we'll do is we'll come down here and I'm going to turn up the panel lights here in the pedestal. And if it's going to be a nighttime flight, I'm also going to click the floodlights up about 2 clicks or something like that. We are now about half an hour late from our departure. So we got a half an hour late, but we do need to get going here. How are those passengers doing? 121 of 143. Things are getting close. Things are getting close. I'm trying to think, okay, what are other things we could do? We could do runway heading. Runway heading for departure. We're going to get this off of the airport map. Departing runway 9, so our heading is 092 degrees. So let's plug that in. 092. Do you remember from looking at the charts that our first cleared altitude is 5,000 feet? I'm not sure. I don't know why I remember that, but I remember that. And then the last thing that I'll do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and start the topper calculator. The topper calculator is a freeware. You can get it at Sim Market. I think it's like $5. You can get them for all of the 737s. I'm going to use the 800 today. I'm using Imperial settings. This is a US flight, and we are at KBOS, Boston Logan, and we know we're taking off of runway 9. Our winds at Logan, according to my ADAS and METAR, are 010 at 12. And so we'll put the winds in. Outside air temperature is -2. Anti-ice is going to be on. I'm going to have engine anti-ice on. QNH, our altimeter is 2952. You might ask, hey, wait, you just entered your altimeter. Why did you look? Humans forget things. Not just humans that have a little gray hair, too. All humans forget things. And so when I have to put in a piece of data, unless I'm 100% sure, like that altitude, our top altitude, 5,000, I go in and it's easier to look and see. Like I said, humans forget things. So I think reading it off the paper just is a great way to feel like I'm sure. All right, 143, passengers are now done. So with passengers aboard, I'm going to go over here and return. I'm going to doors, and I'm going to close the main door. And so there's the main door that's closing. Now then, let's come on back here. And since the main door is closed, we can come to ground services. And I did this with, I called the jetway with, I did it with GSX, but I'm going to release my jetway here just the normal way that I do it. And there's the jetway. It's gone. With the jetway gone, the APU is up and running, so I'm going to go and trip in the APU generators. I'm going to disconnect from ground power. Passengers are aboard. Doors are closed. I'm going to go ahead and do seat belts. The doors are closed. I'm going to arm the emergency exit lights. And this is also when a real 737 pilot told me they turn on the electric hydraulic pumps with passengers aboard. And now I can release ground power, and I can come over here, just click 0 fuel weight, and this is our load sheet until we get the EFB. And this gives me a gross weight. Now this is not the correct number. What we really want is a takeoff weight. I don't have an exact takeoff weight right now, so I just take my final gross weight, 145,300, 145,300, and I use that as my takeoff weight. It's not great, but not terrible, which is the story of my life. But anyhow, we're going to go and do that. So anti-ice is going to be on, engine anti-ice. Packs are going to be on, so I want my packs on. Let's calculate. And this gives me a temperature of 38, flaps of 5, 137, 139, 147. And that gives me those speeds. So this is good. I'm going to execute. Our selected temperature is going to be 38 degrees. Selected temperature is like flex temperature for Airbus pilots. Takeoff, flaps 5. Now we're going to click the CG button. That's going to give me the CG off of the soon-to-come load sheet, and we'll just put that in there. It gives me a trim setting of 4.83. I'm going to set that right now. That's about 4.83. Okay, so that's good. And so this has already given me speed, so you don't have to have topper, but I've been using topper. And this is set almost the exact same thing, 137 for V1. Rotate is 139. Holy moly, this is like one of the first times this has been an exact match. And 147. This is great. The numbers are coming together. That is exciting to me. Okay, so all of this looks good. 147, this is when I put in my takeoff, my first speed for takeoff, 147. This is also as soon as I get all three of these set in the autopilot, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my flight directors. Flight directors are on. I'm going to come down here. We're going to do parking brakes. Now, we don't even have clearance, but I want to go and let's get pushback. First thing, page 1 of airplane service is clean. Page 2, the fuel truck is gone. Page 3, stairs and jetways are gone. We don't have passenger buses. That's clear. Page 4, all of the fueling, the baggage loaders are gone. Now I'm going to hit return. We're going to use pushback on this one. No, actually, I said I was not going to use the pushback on this one. Let's try and do GSX on this. So chocks removed. Let's just leave this here for chocks and let's try the GSX thing. So let's experiment. GSX. Whoops. Prepare for pushback and departure. Okay. Do you want de-icing? No, not today. We'll try that next time.
Due to icing conditions, please stand by until push is completed and brakes are set.
That's for engine start. Okay, so now we're starting to get some people in front of the airplane. So we got a pushback truck. And...
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Okay. Good. I'm going to go ahead and let's do the anti-collision lights. So anti-collisions are on. Let's see. Let's also remember to do the yaw dampers. And we're going to leave the probe heaters off until the ground crew is clear of the nose of the airplane, because I hear those get really hot.
Departure checks completed. Bypass pin inserted.
And here comes our tug. And it's going to kind of do these funky little move around things here. So the departure tug's a little weird. It's a little bit freaky.
Locking gear.
They actually do animate a lot of cool stuff. Okay, so what do we want to do? Nose right facing north on taxiway A, nose left facing south on taxiway A. How awesome is that? Okay, so they're going to put us out on taxiway A, and I want my nose facing south. Nose left facing south on taxiway A.
Release parking brakes.
Okay, we got the beacon. We're ready to go. Parking brake just got released. Now, let's see if they pull my chocks. I think I have to pull my own chocks here. So, chocks are removed. Once I get good with this is going to be great to use for VATSIM and stuff, I'm sure. Right now it's taking a little bit of time. Did my parking brakes actually release? Let's see. No, they didn't release. Okay, so shall we do that? Parking brakes are released.
Due to icing conditions, please stand by until push is completed and brakes are set.
And out we go. And I think that she walks along with the airplane, or maybe there's a wing walker out there. I'm not sure. Oh, she's walking along on that side. Very awesome. Now, they told us because of icing, they did not want us to start up engines. Look at this. This is a nice pushback. I am thrilled. And the other thing you can do is you can set up de-icing, so you can go to the de-icing areas. I haven't done that yet, so that's why I'm not doing it in this video. Wow, we got a long pushback here. And we're looking pretty good there, too. Okay, even though they said not to, what do you say? Well, that might mess with GSX. This is an absolutely perfect pushback. Awesome. Now, I'm not sure what they would have done in the real world here, what they do for a pushback here. I guess maybe that, you know, they would stop right here, perhaps. I don't know. At spot B. No idea what they would do in this area. It's a pretty congested little airplane operations area, but this is really pretty cool. It's going to put us right on the taxiway. Okay, I'm going to live dangerously. Packs off. Let's do fuel pumps on. I know I'm not supposed to start my engines. I'm being a bad pilot today. Packs off. We need to get going. All right, let's go ahead and do ground start, engine number 2. Engine number 2 is starting. Starter valve is open. And the N2 is going up. We're done with this panel. I'm going to put that one on progress. 25% here. 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, and 25%. And there's that engine starting as they put us right where we want to be. How about that? That's awesome. The startup sounds on this airplane are really good. Oh, there's our ground crew chief following along with that wing. And we're getting a good start there. And there she is right there. So that's where they're going to stop us, I'll bet.
Set parking brakes.
And parking brakes are set. Okay, we got a good start on engine number 2. Let's go ahead and start 1. Engine 1 starts. Starter valve has opened. A little bit of N1, a little more N2. $17, $18, $19, $20. But we are 100% ready to go here. 24 and 25. Cool. Okay, she's probably upset that we started the engines. Yes, I know, we're bad pilots. So let's go to GSX. Confirm a good engine start.
Cockpit to ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
Okay, so they were waiting for that. And there goes engines number 1. Good start there. Let's get the packs turned on. It's cold outside. Passenger comfort's a good thing to do. I'm going to switch over to the engine generators. Engine generators are really good. Let's see. Everything looks nice here. We can turn off the isolation switch.
Unlocking gear.
And we can also disconnect the, we can also turn off the APU bleed. And since we got a good start on that engine, I'm going to go ahead and turn the APU off. And there goes our truck. And I think...
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed. Left is clear. Right is clear.
Oh, the ground crew chief is underneath the airplane talking. And then I guess it's going to walk over here. and do salute and release from guidance. Salute and release from guidance is actually something that real-world airlines take very seriously. They say you never release the parking brakes at this point until they go out there, hold up the gear pin, and give you that. That tells you that your airplane is ready to go. So gear pin and goodbye. That tells us that nothing is underneath the airplane. We're not going to run over, you know, any humans or any cute little bunny rabbits or anything. We can also turn on the probe. Probe heaters are good. And just everything looks good to go here. Let's do a cabin call. There is a cabin call. Let's go and do the taxi lights. Taxi lights are good. Looking down here, I have neglected to squawk mode Charlie on all taxiways. We'll go to standby. So bad pilot there. If you have a gaming chair or a chair that tilts back and you have rudder pedals, lock your chair in. Otherwise, you push back, and that becomes embarrassing. And we are ready for taxi. So out we go. The 737 is going to want a little bit more power to get it going than the Airbus. But once it gets going, you can almost do a thrust idle taxi. You can almost do thrust idle. And out we go. So let's see. It is light snow, but there's not a bunch of junk on the runway, so we'll go and do flaps 5. If there was more snow on the ground or something like that, we would wait and deploy the flaps and stuff until we get closer to the runway to avoid getting a bunch of nasty stuff in your flap mechanism, snow and ice and stuff, or worse. And all that looks good. Auto brakes are set to auto. And there's a caution, so sometimes that tells me that you have to do it twice. Or something. That doesn't look right. Okay, we are coming up on taxiway Echo. We want taxiway Kilo. That doesn't look right. Let's see. Up here, everything is normal. Nothing appears to be Abby something. Now's also a good time. Do your control checks. You can see that flag over there is blowing around. If you've got gusty winds like we do today, that would be something to expect. Okay, here is taxiway Kilo. We're cleared across for left. And then it's taxiway Mike to runway 9. We're going to go and do engine anti-ice. We already said we're going to do that for our departure. Temperature outside the airplane is 2 degrees. There's precip. That is a recipe for icing. And as time goes by, the icing's only going to get more and more entertaining. I'm going to go ahead and crunch my engines here. I'm going to go over here and do continuous start. And by crunching the engines, so the indicator, the CRTs here, so I just hit engines. This is also where you could go and check your controls. I did check those. And here is Mike. Now, on the FNO, there were like almost 10 airplanes ahead of us when we did the taxi out to the runway. So as you get closer to the taxi point, so here we are at runway 9. We know that we're about ready to be cleared for takeoff. An important thing to do is while you're sitting here waiting, I'm going to do parking brakes. Let's come on over here, and there is an important number to check on your flight plan. And it's this one right here, T-off fuel. If you're a golfer, that means something, but here in Flight Sim, our takeoff fuel needs to be 15,483 pounds. You're going to get the same number in kgs in the Airbus. All the airplanes are going to give you a takeoff fuel. Come on down here, look at your gas gauge, and see that your total fuel is 16.0. If it's less than the takeoff fuel, you probably don't have enough gas to make it there. So I would definitely consider not taking off. We're at 16. We've got plenty of gas, so we can go ahead and do the flight. ATC is called, and they've cleared us onto the runway. This is usually when I go and I do my position lights. We've set trim. This is also a great time if you've got a checklist for your airplane, preferably one that maybe you've printed and has in your hand so that you can run through your departure checklist. I also like to suggest on FNOs and everything else, use the checklist. Please, please, please. I'm going to activate my auto throttle. I'm going to recycle the auto brakes one more time. It's still showing up as yellow. I think that means that I have a problem. I don't know what I did wrong. Technically, we should go back to the gate and fix it. On YouTube, we're just going to take off because that's what we do. And let's go landing lights now that we're pointed down the runway. That looks good too. So throttles are up and stable. I usually will run my throttles up a little bit. And we're going to hit, auto throttle disarmed. Auto throttle is now armed again. And there's auto thrust. That is something that just happens. I don't know why. Checked. And I really do look down and check that airspeed like the real pilots. Little bit of right rudder today. Little crosswind, I guess. Up and away.
Positive rate of climb.
Landing gear.
Bank angle.
That was a little bit of a gusty wind there. I'm flying with the flight directors. At this point in time, you're going to get a handoff to departure on the FNO. So having your departure frequency in your radio, so all you've got to do is come down here and hit swap. Is a really amazing, great time saver. Passing 2,000, ATC is just called and said we're cleared up to 17,000 usually. So 17. There we go. We're descending a little bit. This is why whenever somebody talks about how happy business people would be about turning cockpits into one-person operations, when you think about just how much is going on in a cockpit like this, that's sort of like, yeah, that's bullpucky. Okay, I'm going to do VNAV. I'm going to do LNAV. We are set up on our course. Let's get AP engage. On an FNO, as soon as you possibly can, engage your autopilot. Uh-oh, I'm stalling. What have I done wrong here? Airplane is not happy with me. It's climbing way too high. I almost went into a stall. I didn't do my flaps. I did something wrong there. Definitely not my best moment. Okay, VNAV has engaged. The airplane is not happy with me at all. I must be having some icing problems or something today. We did continuous start. It is not accelerating. Okay, the AP is being a super duper brathead. It's not being good. Taking over. It's not helping. It is not a happy airplane. Okay, now I've taken over. I've increased my throttles a bit. Seriously, something is amiss here. I'm going to recycle the flight directors. Start our turn. This is actually some things that happen. I was in a VATSIM event. What were we in? There was an VATSIM event recently where everything went wrong in the cockpit like you're seeing now. Now, I didn't arrange for this. This is just the way it's turned out. But first things first on something like this is fly the route. Now, the airplane is really trying to climb. It is picking up speed. I also dropped my flaps just a little bit to give myself a little more flap room. Now I'm using my trim to try and stabilize my climb a bit. And I'm trying to stay on course. There's Fenway. Speed is now finally coming up. Let's go ahead and see if we can go to 250. And it's going to yell at me about that because I've got some flaps out. Okay, our heading is 139. There is 139 as our heading. We are at Fenway. We're almost ready to go. Let's start our turn to Ollet. So definitely keeping track of what's going on here is important, and staying in your proper place in the sky, especially as you try and work whatever problem it is that you're dealing with. And roll out. Okay, there we are. We are now direct to Gillett. That's looking good. Now all of a sudden the airplane's climbing like a banshee again. So a little bit of trim to try and get more of a stable climb. That's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and come on over here, and I'm going to try and re-engage the flight directors. Flight directors are re-engaged. There is our new heading is 204. Let's set that in there. So there is 204. Okay, that's good. Okay, we're drifting away from our course a bit. Oh my gosh. I also forgot to go to Terra. I also forgot to go to traffic. Terrible pilot today. Okay, we're coming up here. There's Gillett. Weymouth is next. Our speed is still way too slow. Up now the airplane is actually descending. Now then, let's go ahead and see if we can engage the autopilot, the auto throttle. I'm going to hit speed, auto thrust, and see if we can't go ahead. Let's make this turn here first. Let's get on our course heading to our next waypoint. Readjust this so we can make a smooth transition back to autopilot if it's indeed going to work. Okay, we're climbing again. Speed is still not great. All right, let's try and engage auto thrust and see what happens. Auto thrust is now engaged. And I'm moving my throttles in my sim cockpit just to see if auto thrust is engaged. It has. Now let's go over here and see if we can't do vertical speed. And let's do heading select. Uh-oh. Let's go to command and see if it'll take care of us. So we're climbing at 350 feet a minute. Our speed is coming up. We're turning over to north. I have no idea why it did this, but it was definitely being a brat. Our speed is now finally coming up. But if we were in a big VATSIM event, we didn't fly too far away from where it is that we were supposed to be. And we appear to still be flying. The passengers are not panicking, I hope. Let's go ahead and do a notch flaps. So we are at flaps 3. Let's do flaps 1. There's 215. Let's go ahead and do those leading edge slats. There goes leading edge slats. The wings are still attached to the airplane. That's another good thing. Okay. So flaps are up. Flaps are up. And it's taken us to 250. Uh-oh, we missed our turn. Holy cats. ATC just called, said climb and maintain flight level 250. Okay, so we're over there, coming up on DIST, or whatever it is. I mispronounce all sorts of names. It's time to make our map a little bit bigger. Now let's try and get over on this course heading a little bit better. We're slightly deviant off the course. 16,000, let's go ahead and climb at 280. Let's get our speed up so we're not having a bunch of people behind us. We're 1.2 miles away from DIST. Okay, that looks like it's pretty much on course. Let's go ahead and just follow the little pink line there with our current heading. Speed is coming up. Let's go ahead and climb a little bit faster now. ATC probably wanting to know what's going on. We could have said, we're having trouble with the airplane. Now let's go ahead and see if VNAV is going to be our friend. VNAV is now our friend. Let's see what it chooses to do to us. Oh, it's kicking us up to 300 knots now. Let's go down and do a direct to legs. We are direct to PATS. So let's grab PATS, put it in the scratch pad, put it back at the top for a direct to, and LNAV. And I think we're going direct to PATS. And let's go to 40. Okay, now we're direct to PATS. Our speed is coming up. Our altitude is getting better. ATC just gave us our final clearance to our cleared altitude, flight level 360. We continue on up this way. I have no idea why it did this, but I have had this happen. And, you know, it's kind of hard to go back to the airport and do it all over again, especially on an FNO. So I really do suggest work with what you've got. Keep it going. The real pilots, of course, serious problems like this, they're going to say, enough of this. We are going back to freaking land. This is nuts. Okay, there's 18,000 feet. Temperature outside the airplane is 3 degrees. We are above the clouds. I'm going to go ahead and turn off anti-ice. Let's do a cabin call. We can also turn off those landing lights and the nose light now. Get caught up with all the cleanup stuff here. But here on VATSIM, we were able to save the flight and continue on with the event. And you can work these kinds of problems. I mean, yep, we're still flying. Airplane's still good. This is the Star Wars livery. United flew this back in the years leading up to, what was it? Rise of Skywalker. They've since repainted the airplane, but it lives on in flight sim, as do many of the old classic liveries. If I were flying the A310, I'd be flying Pan Am right now. So great old Pan Am liveries. So that's one of the cool things that Flight Sim does. We can fly some of the vintage stuff, which is great. You can fly the old United Friendship livery. If you don't like the new blue and white livery for Lufthansa, you can go and get the golden Lufthansa logo on the tail, so you can go and fly your favorite liveries and stuff too, which I think is kind of fun. It's a little nerdy, but I think most of us are somewhat airplane or travel nerds anyway. Passing 22,000 feet. Everything is looking good. No problems here, except, holy cow. I really started this video thinking, oh, we're going to be able to explain some cool VATSIM stuff and make it, easy for maybe somebody who's new to come in and learn about this. It's going to be a nice little chill out flight. I can play with GSX. Oh no, that sure didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. Okay, passing 23,000 feet. We're climbing nicely. Our speed is good. Let's go ahead and start freaking out about the fuel. I always like to keep a close eye at DCA. Right now, the airplane is estimating 7,600 pounds of fuel. Our minimum, so final reserve and alternate, is 5,008. We have more fuel in the tanks than we need. That is a good thing because, we're going to get delayed. We're going to get some delays in here. Passing 24,400 feet. We did altimeters. Yep, they're standard. So that's good. I tie all of my altimeters together if I possibly can. It's not so easy to do that in some airplanes, but I try and tie them all together. I'm one person. This is a busy two-person cockpit. I don't have time to go and set the first officer's altimeter. I don't mind setting the backup altimeter, but, there you go. I'm going to go to climb over here. We're 58 miles from top of climb. Excuse all of the sniffing. We still dealing with a little cold. We've got another little bit of snow outside of Spy HQ. It's early in the morning, so another snowy day. It is wintertime. That's what it is that we should expect here. Okay. Everything's looking good here. I'm certain we're past 10,000 feet. Let's do continuous restart off. Everything else is looking good up here. And there's no, let's see, I usually like to leave this on either generator 1 or generator 2. This is the electric system monitor. Yaw dampers. Yep, everything else is good. Well, I gotta wonder what it is that I forgot today. I clearly haven't had enough coffee. One of the, a lot of us fly with like the Thrustmaster side stick and throttle. A lot of us, one of the questions is, what are some of the things that I should get for my flight simulator? Where is... I thought I went and brought in spad.next. No wonder my radio isn't on. Thought I had spad.next set up in here. I guess not. Well, maybe that was what it was. I thought I started that. I did a pre-start. Clearly, the caffeine, the quality of coffee is just not there today. I've forgotten way too much stuff. Okay, there is spad.next. And one of the things that I was going to say is I wanted to bring up the window and show it to you and tell you that for VATSIM events, and I am not sponsored by anybody, okay? This is me saying I don't know how it is that I did so many VATSIM events over the years without this device right here. This is the Logitech Flight Simulator radio panel. And the biggest thing that I use is the knobs here to change frequencies and swap frequencies, and it is absolutely the best thing in the world. I'm serious, it really has helped. So if you're looking to add something to your sim cockpit, absolutely. Hands down, like I said, I have no idea how it is that I survived doing VATSIM events for so long. Let's go ahead and do 80 miles is what I usually leave my map on. The two things that I like to have up here in the map are traffic and airports. We're currently heading 272 degrees. That's good, 36,000. Engines are looking good. We don't have any oil leaks. I still have no idea why it is that that thing blew up on me, but wow, was that a blow up. So if we look over here at the radios, we are not on VATSIM, but you can see I can tune the standby frequency to 122-0.8. I can hit swap on that external panel. I'm not kidding how I survived without this, because tuning the radios here is fun. You can tune your radios. It is entirely possible. And I did it obviously for a long time. But the thing is trying to do that down here while you need to be looking up there and looking for other problems and getting ready for the next thing, and just able to go and spin the knob with a big old red LED with numbers. Wow, does that help. So just absolutely amazing. Next thing that I'm going to do is, we haven't even gotten to top of climb, and unless we are doing cross the pond and I've got 4 or 5 hours of flying ahead of me, the next thing that I'm going to start doing is looking ahead to what's up ahead of me, what's next, what's going on. And one of the first things that I'll do is I will go over and I'll go to SimAware, and I'm just going to zoom in and see, do I have, and you know, if we were in the FNO, obviously Washington, Dulles, Baltimore, and National would be up with ATC. They don't, but we can come over here to KBDL Airport, and I would be coming over and doing this, hovering over the airport we're going to and looking at their ATIS. Have the runways changed? Has the weather changed much? And if I've noticed that the runways have changed, then I'm going to start making changes right now. Even if ATC isn't telling me to make changes, I'm going to do it. In this case, because I'm not actually going to an airport with active ATC, we're going to go to the Boston Digital ATIS, and in the Digital ATIS, and we're going to go and do DCA. So we're going to look at DCA now. Here is the latest weather, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab that. And if I had it over in vPilot, that's where I'd put it. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and put it right in here. So DCA ATIS information uniform 290 at 9 knots, 10 miles visibility. The rain stopped there. The altimeter is 2972. Also looking at their ATIS, I want to see, what are your runways? Expecting ILS runway 1. It hasn't changed. That way you can stay ahead of changes. And that's a huge thing, especially in an FNO like this. If you are ahead of the game, you're able to work a problem like I had to work coming out of here. So you're all set and ready to go there. Next thing I'll do is come over to my charts. We're not going back to Boston. As soon as I know I'm really done with it, I'm going to go ahead and just delete them out of my little stack down here. The next thing I'll do is hit Clipper 2. This is our arrival. That's set. There's the ILS and localizer. All of my charts are good, so we're all ready to go. And here we are coming out to Nelly. And this is good. Coming up on our final cruising altitude. Let's go ahead and let the passengers get up. So seatbelts to auto. So passengers can go to the bathroom. I forgot to turn up my backlighting on the panel up here. It just makes it easier to read things. There's 34 going to 36. And then the other thing that I'll do on especially cross the pond is I'm going to keep a very close eye on estimated fuel for landing. If this number's starting to go up or go down, because you're going to be flying for what, 4, 5, 6 hours, you don't want to run out of fuel. So at that point in time, I just really like to go and make sure that I'm not going to run out of gas. The current time in the real world for me is 14:53 Zulu. The other thing I might look at is, okay, this has got us landing at 15:53 Zulu. So it gives you an idea of when the airplane thinks you're going to land. And that really kind of helps out a little bit too. What I usually do on the YouTube videos is, as we approach our final cruising altitude, is, as opposed to letting you sit, listen to me yap for, mindlessly for the next, hour or 45 minutes or so, what I usually do is we'll hit pause on the recording about now. And what you need to do is hit pause on your recording, on your playback, and keep flying the airplane. And then when you get on an 80-mile range here or something, when we get to about 75 miles from top of descent, so here we are, top of climb. So we're still in climb mode. We got 5 miles to go. Eventually, you're going to get a top of descent indicator. When you get between 75 and 100 miles of top of descent, that's when you restart the YouTube video again. So you get to fly for a little bit. I usually record these in the morning. It's time for me to go and make breakfast. So it's time to make breakfast. Get a cup of coffee that might have, I don't know, caffeine in it, so that I'm not forgetting stuff. So those are the things that I will do. So we're coming to top of climb. We'll go ahead and restart the video and the flight 75 to 100 miles from top of descent. We'll redo the weather, make sure everything is good to go with that, and carry on with that. How does that sound? So as we hit that top of climb, there is our United Star Wars 737 non-stop service to Boston, and I will see you in about 100 miles. Ready to start our descent here. And I've got to tell you, the modeling on the Microsoft Flight Simulator just keeps getting better and better and better. I'm still absolutely just blown away at how amazing this airplane looks and performs. It keeps getting more and more fun, doesn't it? Okay, so we are coming up. Here is our top of descent indicator here. By now, if we were in that Friday Night Ops event, we would already probably have checked weather again, maybe a couple hundred times. By now, we may even have been told what to expect as far as the arrival. So come on over here. If we were on VATSIM, we would use vPilot. In this case, we're going to go ahead and just recycle the DCA ATIS. Information Whiskey is now current. So we've got a new ATIS. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that over, and I'm going to put this just right here in my flight notes, so I can make sure that I've got the latest information. We also, I'm going to just check and see, arrivals expect ILS runway 1. We're all good to go. And by the way, if we were on VATSIM right now, and I did have vPilot up, we would have the VATSIM ATIS, so we would be all set and ready to go. As we approach the top of descent here, ATC is going to start telling us to descend at pilot's discretion. Now, generally, this is not going to be, in a big VATSIM event, a nice, smooth, by-the-numbers descent with the star, okay? Usually what they're going to be doing is dropping us down to their predetermined altitudes that they need us to be at. The other thing to expect on this one is they're probably going to slow you down. or maybe speed you up. In fact, I even remember on the FNO at the last little bit, they had me coming in at warp 10 to speed me up in there because there were a bunch of airplanes behind and they needed a speed up. So one of the things that you'll be doing is you will very probably be off of VNAV fairly early. You'll probably be off of LNAV as well too. So flight level change is going to be your bud on this one for sure. We'll go ahead and just do a nice little descent by the numbers this time and keep the speed up because I know the video is getting a little long here. So as we do and look at the Clipper arrival, first thing is we're going to be at 250 knots at the Baltimore VOR. Important safety tip here. See where it says turbojets expect to cross 10,000? Expect to cross is not going to end up in your flight management computer as 10,000 feet. You know, you got lines on top and bottom, which means they expect you to be there. If it says expect to cross, that means the number is going to be pretty much at ATC's discretion. They're going to tell you what to do. Okay, so don't expect, if you are lucky enough to just be able to do a smooth and by the numbers descent on the star, that's going to be in your FMC. In fact, if we go over and look at legs, we can see, let's look for the Baltimore VOR. See, the only thing in pink, which is an altitude constraint here, is flight level 250. Yeah, look at this. It says flight level 198 over here. That's no 10,000 feet. So that's one of those important distinctions that a lot of people don't and I forget sometimes too. If the star says expect to cross, you're going to have to probably manage that more yourself. That's just one of those little quirky things in there. So ATC has called and they have told us that they expect us to cross Baltimore at 10,000 feet and 250 knots. So we've got a little bit of time here, so we could actually go in and put that number here into the FMC. Let's see if it works. Considering how well the flight started, I'm playing with fire. 250 knots / 10,000 feet. Okay, let's put that in there and see what it does. And execute it. Let's look up here and see. Oh, look at this. Do you remember? Our top of descent was here at 40 miles. Now, all of a sudden, the top of descent has magically moved. And it says it's usually going to give you an unable speed. That's why we have speed brakes. Back to cruise. Oh my gosh, we're 13 miles from top of descent. It's time to get going. So let's go ahead and we're going to go and put in 10,000 feet because that's what ATC told us to do on this one. So dial in 10,000 feet. This is a Boeing. So that means if you put in 10,000 feet on your descent and your FMC is programmed correctly, this airplane will descend automatically. So it's going to give us an automatic descent. It will start the descent. It assumes that the airplane says, hey, you're the pilot. You're supposed to set it up right. If you didn't, we're going to have trouble. Okay, everything else is looking good. The thing that I really like about the Boeing is we can go over here, grab that altimeter setting, 2975. And you can dial in, and so you see where it says standard altimeter here, dial in 2975 here, and you can see the small numbers below the STD standard here. You can preset that in there, and so when it's time, all you do is press a button and it's preset. Wow, is that a time saver for those of us in the flight simulator world who are flying alone in a complex cockpit. Thank you, Mr. Boeing. Appreciate that one. Okay, 239. Our top of descent is 4.3 miles, ready to go. What do we got for landing here in Washington? Fuel is at 7.3. Remember, our minimum fuel, alternate and reserve was, no, I don't remember anymore. That's why we keep a copy of the PDF on our desktop. 5.8. It should be 5,837 pounds. Or 5.8, it says 7.3. Hallelujah, we are not going to run out of gas on this flight. So, and in fact, we got plenty of gas if all of a sudden ATC expects us to do a hold and everything else. And there we go, we have started our descent. And down we go. Nice clouds, although we're really not seeing some of that really great Microsoft Flight Simulator scenery today. Not seeing the really great scenery out there. There is a thing that's happening in Microsoft Flight Simulator right now, and that is what I call the big bumps, the wind bumps, bumps in the sky. And we are getting some weather changes and things that are really kind of, whoops, there's a mic there, really kind of severe. And that will change. So you could just be flying along and all of a sudden the clouds and the wind change, the airplane rocks around, and all of a sudden you're getting an overspeed warning. And then like 3 to 5 minutes later, you get another wind change and everything goes back to the way it was before. That is just something that's happening. The controllers know about that, so you can just say, hey, we got a weather burp. Sorry about that, and they'll understand that right now. But there's something with the weather engine that every now and then injects some sort of crazy, hurricane force wind or something like that into it that just messes with your airplane. So it's just one of the things that we deal with. Real world pilots have to deal with real world things. We don't. We get to deal with sim world things, and that's one of the sim world things that we have to worry about. Let's see here. What else can we worry about right now? Not much really at the moment. I usually just leave this on the descent page as we come on in. I keep an eye here on the fuel. It's one of those things I watch an awful lot of. I think the real world pilots probably watch it like a hawk. Even though the computer says everything's good, if you watch some of the real world airplane videos, cockpit airplane videos on YouTube, you see that those pilots are watching their fuel like a hawk too. So it's just something that you do with airplanes, because there's no gas station in the sky yet. And we got a little bit of a turn here as we're coming in on the star, and I think we have entered the stars. So at this point, I've been at 80 miles for cruise. Now I'm going to go ahead and drop it down to 40 miles as we get a little bit closer. I also, here in the Boeing 737, I like to keep an eye on the descent deviation meter. Of course, this gives me an opportunity to do my joke about being, deviant, but has nothing to do with that. This is how high or below the descent path that we need to be on for maximum fuel efficiency and to get to the altitude that we want to be at the point in the sky when we're there. That was awkward. But anyway, so descent deviation is something I keep an eye on. If it starts to look like we're going to be getting a little bit high on the descent, we're above that descent path by quite a bit, that's going to be an opportunity for you to pull out the speed brake lever. In Flight Sim, it is referred to as the lever of shame. There's nothing shameful about using speed brakes. Otherwise, if there was, I doubt Mr. Boeing would have put them on the airplane. It's just something that you're going to need, and you really are going to need them if all of a sudden ATC calls and says, hey, we need you to take a shortcut and you need to descend faster. I mean, that's what they're there for, and you will need them for sure. Another thing that I will usually check as we are coming in is I will usually check and make sure as we're getting a little bit closer to the arrival, do I have my ILS and stuff set up? Now, this is a 737. We have to do it ourselves. In the Airbus, it does it for you, but you still need to verify that it's set it up correctly. Sometimes it doesn't. So we're going to come down here and play with the nav radio and nav 1. And I'm going to come over here and ILS runway 1. It's going to be 109.9. So let's go ahead and do 109.9. And I'm just going to go ahead and make that active right now. Now I'm going to slide over to the other radio, the one on the co-pilot side. And if you take a look over here, you can see that Washington has a VOR right over the center of the airport, 110.0. So I'm going to go 110.0 over here, and I'm going to make that active. That is going to give me another distance to the airport. So when we get close to that VOR, we're going to get a distance not only from the ILS, but from the airport. It just kind of helps out too. So I will go and pop those in. Next thing to do is to come on up here and go and put into your inbound course for landing. That's going to be 006. I do the spy flight on Twitch. It should be 007. Just saying. Okay, come on over here, and we're going to look down here, and we're going to look for that minimum again. A Category 1 landing is 214 feet. So we need to go over here and set our minimums. And this is going to be a barrow, so click the one closest to the panel, and then the outer goes to, and this is a number down here, 214. Very simple to set. The hard one to set is yesterday we did the VATSIM event into Telluride, and the minimums there are 11,000 feet and change. That's a lot of cranking on the list, on the knob there. Made me wish that we were flying an Airbus where you just enter that number digitally and it can handle it. We were in the CRJ, so that just means crank, crank, crank on a knob. Okay, and we're doing pretty good here. We're 24,000 feet. Usually, unless there's turbulence, that's when I go from auto to on seatbelts. So we're going to put passengers in their seats. And we're doing pretty good on our descent. And our new heading is 247. It's a Boeing. You keep your heading bug always updated. You actually have to do that in the A310 too. Why do you have to keep it updated? Well, let's say, remember all those troubles I had with the autopilot? Let's say all of a sudden the autopilot bug comes back. And oh my gosh, the autopilot doesn't work. All I have to do is look down here, and I can see my heading bug is already right there. If I see it going this way or this way, I know I'm a little bit off course. So that is a great reminder to the human when the computer has a nutty. So, and as you see, it does sometimes have issues. Okay, all of this is looking good. No reason to make any changes. Life is good up here. We got the packs on. We've got pressure in the airplane. You know, the passenger's blood isn't boiling and all these other things. So, you know, we're not killing anybody, which is nice. You might notice that we were supposed to be descending at 280 and we got a little bit slow here, so the airplane's speeding up a little bit. This is going to be the point in time where in a big VATSIM event, if you're coming in, ATC is going to call and say, no, we want you at 275 knots. And expect that number to change, because they're going to speed you up and slow you down in the line of airplanes to keep everybody spaced out at a proper interval so we all can land. Which, by the way, is what happens in the real world too. I did get to do one jump seat flight in my life. It was a very long time ago. It was back in a U.S. Airways Express. I mean, that's how long ago this was. And that's the pilots were a little whiny about, yeah, speed up, slow down. That's all we ever do. They were a little cranky about that. And this was a flight into Dulles. This was long before 9/11. So you know, that would be never be allowed today, ever. I think that you know, going into Dulles was actually an amazing thing to see. But yeah, speed up, slow down, speed up. It was entertaining. And it was an old prop liner, so the jump seat in that was really uncomfortable. Okay, here is our turn towards Clipper. You can see that the little banana line here is kind of moving in and out, 18,000 feet. We already know what the altimeter is. So all it is one button. Wow, is that a nice altimeter setting. Then as we come in a little closer, it's 1531 Zulu. So the next thing that I'm going to do is come over here, just hit this button again. Information Whiskey is still current. As we're coming in and things are getting busy, that's when I'm going to do that. Temperature outside the airplane, it is -12. We are entering clouds. Engine anti-ice going on now. And it looks like we're going to hit Baltimore right when we need to. So 250 knots, let's also reset that heading bug. 225. 225. And how we doing on time? Now it's got us landing at DCA at 1556 Zulu. I actually have an appointment at 1600 Zulu today. So we are running this right up against the line. So once we touch down, that'll wrap up the video early. So I will have to stop that and immediately get over on the other system and be ready for that little appointment. So now might be an excellent time for me to do some of the things that I normally do at the end of a video, which is say, first of all, thank you for taking the time to even watch this. That's so nice of you. I always do like to say at the end of these videos that this is never about the right way versus the wrong way, especially when it comes to how these airplanes work and how they fly and how you're supposed to really do it in the real world. I do have a real world private pilot's license. But this is about the flight simulator. So it's not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is just what works for me, and I try to make it as easy and as fun as I can, especially because there's so many new people in flight sim. I always like to mention that I'm really new still here on YouTube, and so I still read all questions and comments. If you are an expert at 737s or anything else, and I got something wrong in this, I really appreciate the fact that some of you have taken the time to put something in chat, in the comments. Let me say that again. If you know that I did something wrong and you want to take the time to put something in comments to correct me, thank you. I actually really do appreciate things like that. And also, if you can, join us over on the Spy Flight on Twitch. I really appreciate that. I absolutely do. It is a fun time. It's a really fun experience for me, and the spy pilots have a pretty good time too. I've also, because of the way finances fluctuate for online content creators, I did recently open a Patreon page. And so now be a great time for me to say a big thank you to, first of all, the subscribers and the gift givers over on Twitch. Thank you for launching my world. Thank you for making the magic happen. I can't say thank you enough. But also the secret agents over on Patreon: Richard, Loviz, Tim Wells, Blazers in 2000, Andy Eagle, T-Mark, Irish Wheels, and the new secret agent JSG Droid, Special Agents Brandon, Wolfies, Jeff Noodles, and the newest Special Agent Ozdave, and the 100 B. Kaiser. I always like to say it sounds dorky, it's probably overused, but thank you for being such incredible jet fuel in the flight plan. I'd be absolutely nowhere without you, so thank you for that. And with all that, the only other thing I'll say is, yes, if you did like this video, a like really does help. And shares, of course, help too, as I try to grow these things and keep doing the sim flying. We are now coming up on Baltimore, so all the ridiculous commercial content is done. Now it's flying time. So we are coming up on Baltimore, so 10,000 feet at Baltimore. Now let's go ahead and throw something at us like would happen. ATC has just called, and they have told us that we need to go direct to Felty. So direct to Felty and execute Felty. They have also told us to descend and maintain 7,000 feet. 7,000 feet. They have also told us to maintain 250 knots. Oh my gosh. And these are just things that happen. So we're going to hit level change and go down to 7,000 feet. We're going to slow the speed down, and usually they will tell you to do it this way too. Slow down to 250 knots and then descend to 7,000 feet. They usually will do that all the time. So Okay, so our speed is coming down. We're at 10,000 feet. We're going to go do landing lights. I'm going to pre-arm the taxiway light. I'm going to do a cabin call for sterile cockpit. And all of that is good. So now we are now direct to Felty. And 10,000. We're not slowing down fast enough. We need to get going here. So I just threw out some speed brakes because they've said descend and maintain 7,000. There's 250 knots. Now we've started our descent. I'll put the speed brakes away. At this point in time, the descent deviation indicator is kind of useless. So we don't need that. Let's also come down to the flight management computer. I'm going to hit init ref. And I land the airplane best at 30, flaps 30. But this is a shorter runway. So if it's a shorter runway, I will go to flaps 40. But I don't know what it is. 30 just seems to be better for me. So there's 10,000 feet. We're going to hit 7,000 feet about halfway to Felty. That's good. ATC is called and said descend and maintain 5,000. So usually they're going to keep you stay kind of ahead of your descent. So we're going to continue down to 5,000 feet and direct Felty. Oftentimes they don't give you a nice direct to. They will say turn 20 degrees to the left. Math. Okay, just we're at 225, subtract 10, 215, subtract. It's that easy. But usually when you're going crazy and then all of a sudden, what, you want me to do math too? Are you insane, controller? No, that's just one of those things that happens. And that's how easy it is to do 20, 30 degrees to the right or to the left. If you can't handle that, just come up here and count 10. Click, click, click 10 times and then do it again. And there's your 20 degrees. But when you're doing your first FNOs and you're surrounded by a bunch of other airplanes, you can feel the kind of pressure cooker that's going on. That's how you do that sort of thing. It's little things like that that really, really help. Okay, ATC is called again, descend and maintain 3,000. And they may at this point tell you to be at 3,000 by high tech or Felty or something like that. So use the little banana line, the green arc here, and that's going to tell you when you're going to be at that altitude. Very, very perfect. Okay, if you have your printed checklist or something, now is a great time to run the approach checklist. What we've got here is we've got the ILS and navigation aids are set. We have selected our speeds for landing. Don't have speed brakes out now. Now would be a great time we can go and arm the speed brakes. And I'm also going to go auto brakes to 3. There's about 5 airplanes stacked up behind me. ATC is telling us to keep our speed up. And that is one of the, that's going to be a little bit of a pressure point for you because we're coming in on the approach. We want to start slowing this bird down so that we can land. We've got a couple of good 90-degree turns coming on up here. So we need to be ready to slow down. ATC knows that, and they will help you out most of the time. But you do start to feel the pressure that, oh my gosh, we're coming in fast. And they really do move you down the line fast here. ATC has just called and said fly heading 210 degrees. 210 degrees. Yes, they do those sorts of things. They're moving us out a little bit. ATC just called and said 230 knots. I mean, that's how these changes come on an FNO. So just do it. You're fine. Look over at your airspeed indicator. Are you indeed slowing down? Yes, we are indeed slowing down. We may not be able to hit that 3,000 feet though, so now's a great time to throw out some speed brakes because the airplane doesn't descend as fast when you're trying to slow down. So now's a great time to add speed brakes and then leave the speed brakes out just a little bit after you hit that 230 knots. And after you hit 230 knots, it should start descending you a little bit faster. After you hit that 230 knots, it should start to descend you faster. Okay, good. It did it the second time. It got the hint. And looks like we're pretty good. So we're descending pretty good at the moment here. Let's go ahead and put speed brakes away. We don't need to go down that fast. If you have to use speed brakes, remember you have to rearm it for your landing. If you are like me and you like to get comfy and stuff in your chair and you kind of move around a little bit, now is a great time for to sit up straight. Over on Twitch, we call it doing a posture check. And so that posture check kind of a thing in Flight Sim, sit up straight. Make sure if you've got rudder pedals, you can do rudder pedals. Make sure that you've got, you can reach your controls. Did you see the little MM flashing there? Yes, we went over a middle marker over Andrews Air Force Base. So if we go outside, there is Joint Base, I think Joint Base Andrews. This is where they park Air Force One. So we're good to go there, passing 5,000 feet. ATC has now called and said 210 knots, please, 210. I'm also going to go and throw out a notch of flaps now. So our leading edge slats are going to start going down. Our leading edge slats are about to start going down. There they go. Yes, I was attempting to be funny with that, but also to tell you that on a lot of these modern jetliners, you hit a button and it doesn't do what you want immediately. It takes time. These airplanes take time to do things. So, you know, just because you've hit a button doesn't mean it's going to happen immediately. Okay, everything's looking good here. Doing fairly decently at the moment. We're still not picking up that VOR. If you have Navigraph and moving map, now is a great time to come over here. There's your airplane there. Just to remind you of what altitude you need to be at. And ATC has called and said to continue your descent to 2,000 feet. Turn right, heading 270 degrees. Speed 180. Oh my gosh, all of that happened so fast. And that's the way it will happen there. So be ready to do that. If you're doing a flight by yourself, you know, start cutting a couple of corners like this. And that's just going to set you up even better. There's our turn coming around there. And now we got a 90-degree angle over there. How about another notch of flaps? Another notch of flaps. Let's do 2 where we should be. Flaps 5. I would like flaps 10, please. I'm going to go and do landing gear now. I don't mind putting the landing gear out a little bit sooner on an FNO like this because they really are... Oh, it stopped. Oh, level change. It stopped because I slowed down. That's right. Don't be afraid to hit a button a second time if the airplane doesn't start doing its thing. There's 2,500. Now at this point in time, ATC is probably going to say, turn to a certain heading, cleared for the ILS runway 1, maintain 180 knots until 5 miles DME from the runway. That's them telling you to keep your speed up. Okay, we are coming on up here. I do have glides. I have localizer. I don't have glide slope. And so we're going to go ahead and make a turn in here. So let's make a nice little turn in here. Now, when we were doing the FNO, it was the middle of the night, and they were doing the not the river visual, but the one on the south side river approach, and say, call when you have the river in sight, and it's sort of like, it's dark outside, I can't see any river. I'm also going to, as soon as I can, I'm going to activate approach or the landing button or whatever. In an FNO, it's not a sign of how great a sim pilot you are to not use the autopilot. Holy cats, this is, you know, use these tools so that you can maintain your proper point in the sky. It's that kind of a deal. Okay, localizer's coming on over. We're looking good here. And all I'm going to do now is ensure that it does snag the localizer. It did, turning us to final. Now I'm also going to slowly sit back in my chair, put feet on rudder pedals, and get ready to take over. So there's 180 knots. Everything's looking pretty good there. I can go and do flaps 15 because we're about ready to start our descent. Quick check up here. Lights are all set. Everything else is good. We are out of the clouds. The current temperature is 6 degrees. The rain has stopped. I don't know what the cost is to leaving engine anti-ice on or off. I would assume it's a little more fuel. I don't know if it's wear and tear on the airplane, but that's a good thing for me to start to read about. You know, is it better to just be safe and leave it on even if you think there's ice in the refrigerator? So the next thing I'm going to do is take a look outside here, and I want to see my runway. And I want to see those lights for the runway as soon as I possibly can. So as soon as I can see the lights for the runway, that's what I want. In the 737, there's a couple of green lights. There is speed brakes, there's flaps, and then there's gear down. Those are my three. Gear down, auto brakes, speed brakes. Those are the things that I worry about. We are now 5 miles DME. So at this point in time, I'll look down there, remind me of the speed, 137, 140 for landing. So 140. I always add a little bit to those speeds. Let's do a notch of flaps. We're going full flaps here. At a really nice airport like the one that we're going into, expect scenery loading hesitations that we're all experiencing in Microsoft Flight Simulator. The thing that I just do is wait for it. There's nothing else that you can do. So, all right, looking good. I'll do one more last check. Gear, flaps, speed brakes. Then I look here at the map, check my winds, and then I actually visualize it. Winds from the left blowing me this way. Autopilot off. And I do my own descent. And then we have a nice little landing. As we get a little bit closer in the Boeing 737, I'm going to go and disarm the auto throttle. But first I'm going to look and see what the engines are at. It's at 67%. Then I go and I disengage auto throttle and match it with my levers here in the sim cockpit. Little high.
300. Approaching minimums.
This is one of the most fun parts of flight simming.
Minimums.
Landing. In Boeing, you say landing when it's minimums. In an Airbus, it's continue.
50. 30. 20. 10.
Reversers. Uh-oh. My reversers aren't working. Do you see the auto throttle button? Something's wrong. I thought I switched everything. Something was wrong, because I should have been able to have hit that button and had the reversers kick in. They didn't. And off the runway. So there's something wrong with my control settings. I think I know what it must be. I started SPAD.next late, and it probably did not shift over to the proper. it probably didn't shift over to the proper set of settings. Okay, start to clean up the airplane. Speed brakes up, flaps down. Yeah, that's probably why I didn't have reversers that time. So if I'd been a good pilot and checked all my stuff before I took off, everything would have been fine. One of the things is this airport. This is an incredibly nice airport, and maybe there's a way to do this, but you see there's all of these static airplanes here. I need to go back into settings and see if there's a way to turn off the static airplanes here. I like them. It brings the airport to life, but in a VATSIM event, I gotta tell you, that's pretty crazy and ridiculous. Okay, APU is coming on up. We need to go strobes to steady. Engine anti-ice is off. Let's turn off the probes. And we are looking for Bravo 11, which is right over by the Alaska over there. And Bravo 11 that's going to be 14, 12, and 11. It's going to be next to that little Delta CRJ. So in we go. And once again, skill and daring will overcome fear and anxiety. If you have this airport and you haven't, let's see, this is gate 22. I clearly don't know what I'm doing. It says Bravo 11 in my charts, but it says 22 down there. There must be a different chart or something. And keep coming on in. Let's go, airplane. Don't stop. I don't even think the Delta CRJ's parked down here at this gate. So they didn't even get the static airplanes at the right airport. So I really need to look at this scenery and see if I can make a change. That's probably pretty good. Parking brakes. The APU, I did start. Hopefully it's running. So we'll come over here. It is. Trip in the generators. Generators, let's do APU bleed. This, let's do this light. Let's do this light. And everything is good to go up here. Seat belts. And we can come up there and disarm the emergency exit lights. Then I will come on down here. I'll go to menu, FS actions, ground services, do your chocks, request a ground power card, request a jetway. Then come over here and do a 0 for your passengers. Go over to baggage, do a 0 for both forward and aft baggage. And then what you do is you would request, this is not using the GSX stuff. Return, go to doors, open the 1L, and if your jetway is working, there should be a jetway out there. There isn't. So the jetway button did not work. Return. Go to ground services, jetway, hit the button again. Look outside, do we have a jetway? Nope, not moving. Our jetway is just sort of sitting there saying, ha 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 ha, I am not working for you. But hey, there we go. That's, again, kind of the way that, that this thing works. The last thing that I'm gonna do is just have a quick look over here at Sim Toolkit Pro. My landing rate was a -371. So that was clearly the problem there. Let's also do a quick look and see if I was right. So we're going to go over here and look at spad.next, look at the airplane configurations. Nope, I'm wrong about that. It's got me set up as a 737 model 800. So it's got the 800 there. Let's go and look. So come on over here. Let's do control options. And let's look and see what my control options are. Slide on over here. And it says Phoenix, Phoenix, Phoenix. Now I set these. I swear I set those things. I did. Something is wrong because I set these to the PMDG. Well, there you go. But I mean, those are the little things that if you can check those little things, those are the things that are going to make these things work out so well for you. And I hope that maybe this ultra long video with problem after problem after problem shows that you are now ready to take on your first FNO. Friday Night Ops, you ought to do a few of those so you're ready for Cross the Land and Cross the Pond, 2 monster mega events that are coming up in the world of VATSIM. Thank you so much for watching this video. I sure appreciate it. I hope you'll join me over on the Patreon page, but also over on Twitch. Every flight is a group flight, and there's some really cool people, including some real-world pilots, airline pilots that join us regularly, and it's so great to get to talk to them. And it's so great of you to come here today. I hope you are having a great 2023. As I always like to say, stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you again soon here on YouTube, and even sooner on Twitch. Cheers.